Ever since my, let's say, less than perfect first attempt at trying to do some big forging on this channel, I have been meaning to do it again, but unfortunately I've been at the opposite side of the country at university learning many things. But now I'm back, it's the summer holidays, and I'm going to try and do some more metalwork on this channel, and I'll have a few more videos coming up over the next few weeks as well. I want to get a light bulb made from scratch. I have a plan to do that, and maybe a few other things. Maybe I'll have a part 2 of my worm gear if I can get the thing to work properly. It's still having trouble with the screws that hold it in place shearing in half, which isn't the best. Anyway, so I thought, what can I make as a fairly small, fairly easy thing? Because I wanted to try out pattern welded steel, where it's multi-layered sections joined together. It's what I failed to do in my previous forging video. So I thought, what's a small thing that I can make? I know, arrowheads. I'll make myself a medieval style arrow. I have a test piece I've done here, so you can see vaguely what I'm aiming to. This one's not got an end on it though. Missing an arrowhead. So, without further ado, as usual, big hammer, nice anvil, let's get to it.
So to this end, I have several pieces of mild steel. This is just regular mild steel, it's not particularly good quality. Still vastly superior to anything medieval blacksmiths would have had. So I'll make a stack. I've got 4 of these, which I'll stack up. This one I've kept the coating on. I haven't sanded off the coating on this one simply because extra bit of oxidation resistance in the forge won't go amiss. And then onto that, I have 2 thin sheets of very nice, I believe this is stainless steel, which I will stack up onto the top. These will then be brazed together at one end to hold them together in the forge, and it will be forged together into one piece. That will then be folded round so that you'll have the mild steel on the inside and the nice, hard, cutting edge will be made out of this stainless.
So I believe it has now reached the temperature needed to perform the forge weld. So I will turn off the air pump. We'll carefully take grip of it by the end. Move it on. We'll start hitting the layers together. Try and consolidate into a single piece. I'm just doing even hits onto it with the hammer at this point. Perfectly even onto the end, because you want to get the other end joined, and then once the end's joined, you do it. You want to get this end here as hot as it can possibly be, so that the steel's almost melting, and then you can join it together. Okay, so attempt 2, try and consolidate the forge weld. At the end. There we go, yep, it's right up to the temperature we need. As you can see here, it's definitely hot enough. The end's gone slightly crumbly, which is the good sign. Just want to keep hitting it down onto itself to form a single cohesive block. Little bits will chip off, you'll lose material this way. You're not going to get 100% of the stuff in, but that's just the way of things. So now it's like this. I'm going to knock off the clamp that's been holding the fire end together. Since I've knocked it together, the clamp should be a little loose. And then once I've got this clamp off, somehow, I'll put that end into the fire to consolidate the other end and make it into a single homogeneous piece. Now, the thing you might notice is that I'm not using my biggest hammer, and this is because it's not actually hugely important how big the hammer you're using at this stage is, because the metal is very soft when at this temperature. It's much more about making sure that your hits are accurate, and you're making sure to do an even sort of hammering across the entire thing to properly join the two into a single piece. So now it's joined at this end, it's joined at that end. It's a little weak in the middle. I'm seeing a few delaminations there, so I'm going to put the full thing in, specifically heat the middle, and then hammer everything to get it properly consolidated into a single piece. Okay, so now everything's consolidated. I'm going to attempt to fold. This will be done in 2 heats. First one I will start folding, the second one I'll finish it off. Go down into the bed of coals to retrieve a very hot piece of metal. Brush off the coals from it, make sure it's clean. And over the end of the anvil, I'm going to start bending it round. The layers are separating slightly doing this, but it should be fine. So now I've got to bend about halfway across. I'm going to put it back in. When I take it out, I'm not going to explain this now because I'll be doing it too quick when I actually do it. I'm going to brush down this as much as I can to get as much of the scale off as possible, and I'm going to smash that round into this piece and then keep heating it to join it into one single solid block. But there we go, that's a really good temperature. So now it's been folded and the fold has been consolidated into a single block. I'm going to begin to forge my arrowhead. I'm going to do this by getting the end of this folded round. I'm going to begin bringing that into a triangular point because this piece is going to form my broadhead arrowhead. So we'll take it out of the forge. These gloves might help my hands in the later stages, but they don't help my accuracy. So as you can see, if I hold it close to the camera, after just one heat I've sort of gradually started taking it round, and I'll do that until it ends in a point here. Note how I hold the piece at an angle so that the vice gives me the other side. And I'll go a bit to a point. I'll make sure it's all together. Do the other side a bit. The anvil actually tends to give a better side than the hammer does, and I really should stop calling the anvil a vice, but I'm an idiot. So as you can see, it's more of a point, and I'll keep on doing this until I've got a nice point. So now I've got the point almost to where I want it. I'm going to just finish it off. I've heated it up extra hot for this last one, just so that I get a nice fused point along the end instead of something consisting of two parts that have sort of improperly joined. So I will root around and find where the metal has gone. The problem is, at this temperature it looks just like all the rest of the coal, only it crackles a little more. Brush it off. Right, so as you can see here, I've got my piece. It's all nice and straightened to a point. Any sort of minor defects on the end here will be finished out when I'm putting an edge on it. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to separate the arrowhead part from the bit that will just wrap around the bottom of the arrow. So I'm going to get here and I'm going to hit it from either side to pinch the center section inwards. So the pinching in is going to be done using this vise and chisel and a special hammer I have that you'll see in a moment when I start. The idea is that I have two very thin, definite points. I can put the piece of metal between these points and I can hammer in to produce a different slot between my arrowhead and my work. It is, however, proving to be difficult to keep hold of the metal whilst doing this though. So I've gone in a little bit. I'll probably have to do this for a couple more heats, but I'll continue this and cut back when that is done. So now I've got the separation done. I'm going to work on the arrowhead part and just finish off the edge bevels and stuff like that to properly make it into the right shape. This is going to be done at fairly low heat and done fairly methodically and slowly. Just want to get the end of that arrow just to the right shape. And get it pointing dead on the right way. Probably going to be short heats and short burns, but as you can see, it's beginning to look properly like an arrowhead now. So this area will be the arrowhead, of course, and that area will be hammered flat to form something that can fold around the shaft of the arrow to join it on. After a long time forging and a little touching up with my hand torch after finishing, I now have this, which will form the basis of my broadhead arrowhead. As you can see, I've made it into as much of a nice leaf-shaped curve on the end as I can, and I've spread out the back to as thin as I can, so that's going to form the socket, and that, of course, the arrowhead itself. If I line this up, you can see I've tried to get it as straight and as thin on the edge as I can, and I heated up the very point and quenched it so the point is as hard as I can make it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start filing the arrowhead first, then going on to sanding it a bit, and then finally onto a whetstone to sharpen it. And I'm going to use my vise to bend this round so that it fits my nice end of here. This is a lot bigger than it needs to be on a proper medieval arrow. Of course, this would be a lot smaller, but I'm not a good enough smith to be able to
work this properly into what it should be. So I'm just going to fold this round here so that it fits, making sure of course that I have a line from the shaft through to the very point, because you want to make sure it's straight on to the point. So now as I'm doing this, it's sort of gradually turning it into a curve, and you just want to make sure that it goes around enough to fit the shaft of what you're putting it on. The shafts are just dowling. They would properly in medieval times be made of good wood, but that's expensive, and these are mostly for decorative purposes. So when filing the arrowhead to shape, you want to get a constant angle and keep going just down the entire length of where the blade edge will be, keeping that angle constant going. And what that should create is you'll get a nice neat line down the middle and a nice good smooth edge. Just keep going until you've got a nice line down the middle and you've got rid of most of the pits from the forging. This might take some time. So now after a lot of filing, the filing stage is finished. So as you can see, I've got starting to look a lot more like an arrowhead. You can see the two edges meet in a nice clear defined point in the middle of the two. There is a slight burr around the edge, but that'll go when we start the sharpening phase. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get a whetstone, and I'm going to work with the same angle I've been working on here, and I'm just going to drag it over the top and just generally sharpen this on low grit and then high grit to make it a really nice finish. So as I said, just get your blade, put it down, start dragging along across the stone. And you should start to see there's a little point of it there, a very very shiny surface start appearing. You just need to keep doing that until the shiny surface covers all of everything, and then do it on the other three sides. So to show the difference between the two sides, this side here has been polished and this side here is only filed. So I don't know how well you can make it out on here, but that side is noticeably more shiny than this one that has a lot of lines in it. So I've been 2-3 hours on my whetstone, and now I have my arrowhead finished. I've got a nice defined point on all sides. I think it looks very nice, catches the light very well, and the edges are particularly sharp because if I get a sheet of paper and hold it right, as you can see, the edges of this, when it's properly held taut, will cut just right in down through the paper without really that much resistance. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my shaft and make sure that that's being located straight so that that's matching the angle of my point into there. After a bit of hammering, I've managed to fold round the rear end of the arrow to create a socket, and the thing is pretty much lined up. It's a little low, but the line here matches the line of the arrow behind, which is the real important bit, that it's properly transmitting all the force forward. Again, this is the first time I've ever tried to do this. I'm not going to be creating perfect medieval arrows, because medieval arrowsmiths would have had their entire lives to perfect the art, and I've just thought, well, wouldn't it be cool if I tried this? Actually, that's pretty much how you could describe my entire channel, but never mind. So finally, to make all of the nice lines come out from when we forged it as a multi-layer piece, I'm going to etch it in some hydrochloric acid. This is just cheap patio cleaner type stuff. I'm going to pour in here. Should be enough. And I'm just going to add, just to make sure everything works, a pinch of iron oxide, so it gets converted, some of it to ferric chloride. And I'm going to get my arrowhead, and I'm going to slowly just sort of stand it up in there. And I'll leave it like that for probably about 12-16 hours overnight, and I'll come and have a look at it in the morning. Now the arrowhead has came out of the etch. In truth, I did actually keep it in for a couple of days, and then I heated up the etch just to make sure it had as big an effect as possible. And if I zoom in on the head itself, just get the camera in focus properly, you can see along here that the layers has formed. It's lost some of its shine, which is unfortunate, but especially along a curve here you can see a line, along a curve here you can see a line, and there is another one along here, but it's more faint, and I don't know if you're going to be able to make that out on the camera. You can definitely see it coming down along through this corner though, where it's changing. So all in all, I think it went quite well. On the other side, it's still there, but the layers are less visible. There's a very big one tracing along there. Of course, you can see the slight split. Otherwise, they're not as visible on this side for some reason. But it's this side. I think it actually did come out really nicely, especially since this is the first time. Well, not the first time I've ever tried to do this, but the first time I've ever successfully been able to forge weld two pieces of metal together.